A big show coming up, but first, this.
Foreign governments are going to try to influence our democracy for the rest of our lives. We need to have tools to find out about that. And when you find out about a foreign government trying to influence a campaign, you need to protect the campaign, not spy on it. They did it right for Clinton. They used the counterintelligence investigation to spy on Trump. That is a double standard. That is political bias. And I'm hoping Durham is looking at this.
That was Senator Lindsey Graham on this program back in August. Breaking news about a document he said proved that the FBI applied a different standard of justice to Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. We learned more about this on Wednesday when President Trump formally declassified a slew of Russiagate documents before leaving office. Joining me right now are two journalists who were instrumental in exposing the Russia hoax. John Solomon is editor-in-chief of Just the News. Lee Smoot will be joining us in the next blog. John, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. Walk us through what was most important from your standpoint of that Russia document dump that we saw this last week as the President Trump declassified so many documents related to the made-up story of Russia collusion.
Yeah, I think when we're done, listen, there are thousands of pages of documents, so it's going to take us weeks to get through the significance, but these are to judicial integrity, to what the Pentagon Papers were to the Vietnam War. Why do I say that? It just shows an extraordinary effort by the FBI to participate in what they knew was a political dirty trick. They knew Christopher Steele's intention was to help Hillary Clinton get rid of her email scandal, distract the public from it in the last quarter of the election. They also knew that he wanted to help Great Britain because he thought Donald Trump would be bad for the U.S.-Great Britain relationship. They knew a foreigner was influencing our elections, and they allowed it to persist, not for weeks or months, but for 2.5 years. I think at the core of it, that is the big headline that these documents make. Then you can go through all the things like Senator Graham just said. The double standard is irrefutable. Hillary Clinton was being targeted by a foreign power. They were going to route money into her campaign. The FBI tried to get a FISA on the country to spy on it. James Comey's leadership said, nah, we're not going to do that, and they gave her a defensive briefing. Probably a good thing. They did not do the same thing for President Trump. They go get the FISA, they spy on the campaign. They never give President Trump the same defensive briefing. Two standards, one FBI. It's why people are so frustrated.
So tell me about the real bombshells in this declassification, because I know that you are breaking news this morning on Andrew McCabe. What can you tell us?
Listen, Andrew McCabe is one of the most central figures in this case. He was deputy director until James Comey was fired. Then he became the acting FBI director. And back in 2015 and 16, I wrote a series of stories with Sarah Carter that looked at his wife running for Virginia Senate. He and his wife meet with Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a close Clinton friend and a Democrat, that they arranged some financing for McAuliffe to help McCabe's wife, and yet he never steps aside in the email investigation until the very end, and he never stepped aside in the Russia investigation, obviously, even though Hillary Clinton's evidence was what started the whole Russia case, the Steele dossier. These declassified memos, including McCabe's own notes that he took from meetings, showed there was grave concern that McCabe was staying around and participating in these cases. Rod Rosenstein in 2017, May, right after Comey's fired, tries to push McCabe to step aside, saying it's just not good, it's bad optics, it's going to hurt the integrity of the FBI if you stay in charge of the Russia case, given all we know about your wife's campaign. And at the end of the day, McCabe stood there and said, I'm going to stay in there. Now, even Special Counsel Mueller, Robert Mueller, was aware of this. He said, I'm not going to get into the conflicts, but you should know, Andy McCabe, you're probably going to be a witness in my Russia investigation. McCabe still doesn't step aside. So that's stuff we did not see going on. It was in the backroom dealing.
John Durham is continuing a criminal investigation. We are going to be talking this morning about the Biden agenda. Do you expect Durham to come out with indictments even in the face of a new administration and the Biden agenda unfolding?
Everything that I see in the activity of the investigation and everything I hear from defense lawyers and others that are familiar with what's going on is that he is building a small number of indictments, trying to get the evidence to get there. There have been some delays, and there's fights over evidence in the secret, behind closed doors, grand jury fights, but all the evidence is pointing toward him trying to bring criminal charges probably in the first quarter of this year. That's what I'm hearing. Of course, there's a new sheriff in town. when Merrick Garland gets confirmed as Attorney General, as we expect he will, he'll have a say. Maybe he'll take and put the case and set it aside. But right now, John Durham looks to be building a small number of indictments focused on the top of the FBI. That's very important, the very top of the leadership of the FBI. That's where he's looking.
Also in these documents that were declassified, we learned about Christopher Steele and a confession a year after he was fired. Tell me about that.
So important. Christopher Steele finally describes his motive in September 2017. Remember, he was fired in November for leaking to the media, November 16. They bring him back in September and said, here are my two motives. My first motive was James Comey reopened the Clinton email case. I thought that was going to hurt Hillary Clinton's chances. I leaked to the news media to create a different storyline in the public. And secondly, I considered Donald Trump to be my main opponent, and I didn't want him to be president because he would I think he would hurt the Great Britain-U.S. relationship. Now remember, he's a foreigner. He's a British former MI6 agent. This is the clearest evidence that a foreigner intervened in an election. We started the Russia collusion investigation thinking Donald Trump and Russia were colluding together, and we ended it knowing that Hillary Clinton's hand-picked MI6 investigator intervened in our election because he didn't like Donald Trump and he wanted to help Hillary Clinton. What a role reversal.
Unbelievable. All right, John, look, we want to take a short break. I want to get into China because while we were looking at this wild goose chase for 3 years over Russia, Congress completely missed the real threat to the United States, and that is China. When we come back, we will add journalist Lee Smith to the conversation on these newly declassified documents, more bombshells, Russia and China. Welcome back. We are talking about the document dump this week of Russia information. 2 journalists this morning instrumental in exposing the Russia hoax. John Solomon, editor-in-chief of Just the News, and joining the conversation is Lee Smith, author of The Permanent Coup. Lee, thanks very much for joining the conversation. Your reaction to what we saw this week as we have been talking about these newly declassified documents.
Yeah, I mean, John's piece is very important, the one that just came out this morning. And that's actually fascinating because we realized that going back to 2016, the entire operation was covering for Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's email problems, right? The real issue wasn't that she was messing around or that she was mishandling classified intelligence. It appears that there was some nasty stuff in those emails they didn't want getting out, so they needed to smear Donald Trump as a Russian asset. And of course, this operation continued for a long time. And it's very funny then to see Rod Rosenstein and Robert Mueller both saying, as the British would put it, it's a little bit too much on the nose, Andy, to have you still running this investigation here at the FBI, given the amount of money that Clinton allies paid for your wife's campaign. We need to make this look legit now. It's no longer about Hillary. It's about tying up the President of the United States.
Unbelievable. We have those texts between Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe, as well as Peter Strzok. Tell us how you see it. Do you agree with that, John, what you just heard from Lee?
Oh, I do. I mean, listen, Lee's book lays it out better than anyone has done it in the last 5 years. He has it just right. Yeah, it's such a great book. Listen, here's the thing. Andy McCabe is a political animal, and anyone who doesn't think so just needs to read his text messages. You know, there's a moment, one text message that caught my fancy last night, and I put it into this morning's story. It's right after the Brexit vote passes in Great Britain, and someone, a colleague, sends sends McCabe, hey, this is a sad day for the UK, and he writes back, yeah, I didn't see it coming, I'm shocked by it, but you know what? I hope it's not a harbinger for what's going to happen here in America in November, meaning November 16, clearly indicating he didn't want a Donald Trump-like movement here in Washington like Brexit had done for Great Britain. You don't really want your deputy director of the FBI, who's supposed to be above politics, talking that way. And you know, there's a lot of interesting things in these text messages and gets to the mindset of Andy McCabe.
Yeah, you know, what really gets me, Lee, and I cover this in my book, as they were running and yelling fire in a crowded theater about Russia, they completely missed the real threat, which is the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP has told the world that it intends to become the #1 superpower, replacing the United States. It is doing that through stealing, theft of intellectual property, human rights abuses, bullying the rest of the world. You've written a lot about China as well, Lee.
Well, I don't think it takes a tremendous amount of imagination to see to see the United States, in particular right now the FBI, the way the Chinese Communist Party does. Like, let me get this straight. The FBI is responsible for doing counterintelligence on China, but actually they've been spending their time targeting the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And now, under the new administration, we hear from think tank experts, journalists, current and former law enforcement officials that what the FBI now wants to do is they want to use the same methods and techniques that they've been using to target Islamic extremists. They're going to redefine Donald Trump supporters as domestic terrorists. I mean, if you're an American adversary, you look at the United States and you think we've gone nuts, because we have. That's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald's going to come up later on the program. He's calling this the terrorism, domestic terrorism that we're seeing in terms of what you just mentioned. Look, where is this going, guys? You've got John Durham working on a criminal case. You've got the Biden the Biden administration with Susan Rice, Jake Sullivan, Neera Tanden, Avril Haines will all be considered in terms of their appointments this week and in the coming weeks by the Senate. What's your take on accountability, which is the question I constantly ask for, John?
Listen, I think the most important thing to watch for is that Hunter Biden spent his time and his business partners focusing on 3 countries to make money in: China, Russia, and Ukraine. And those are 3 of the places that the Obama-Biden team, when Joe Biden was the foreign policy chief, went soft. We had Russia invade Crimea. We had Russia reboot fail. We had China walk all over the United States and gain enormous ground. And Hunter Biden was cashing in on all 3 of those. We have to see whether Joe Biden changes his policies towards those 3 countries, and also whether Hunter Biden will get indicted for the tax issues related to all those business relationships.
Now, Lee, final word.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see during these nominations, I'd like to see Republican senators ask some hard questions. They blew it last week with Avril Haines, right? She was read into Russiagate in August 2016. Where were Republican senators? If they have questions about what questions they should be asking Jake Sullivan and other people who were involved in the Russiagate operation using political espionage, they can contact me, they can contact John Solomon, and of course they can contact you. But these questions should be asked. They should be put on the record.
Yeah. All right, and this is one of the reasons that you have a real division within the Republican Party as well. There's a big group that feels that you, exactly the way you do, and others who just don't. Let's move forward. They're saying, Lee Smith, John Solomon, great to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much.